Hi, I'm Tim Shapter. I'm the Director of Smart SMSF Solutions. I'm also a licensed financial planner and the Senior SMSF Strategist for Smart SMSF Solutions. I've been a financial planner for 16 years. 11 of those years I've given advice in self-managed super funds, and for the last 3 years we've primarily focused on giving advice to clients wishing to set up self-managed super funds with a correct structure and some strategies behind that. So this is the first video really giving an overview of what superannuation is, and hopefully dispelling some of the myths about super and providing a little bit more education around what superannuation is. So without further ado, let's get into that and have a look at what superannuation is. Now I do everything in pictures, and I don't apologise for this. I found it's worked really well over the years, and it really does help me to explain what superannuation is. So here we go. So think of superannuation as a bucket. So if you've got an AMP super fund, it might be a blue bucket. If you've got an AXA super fund, it might be a red bucket. But at the end of the day, think of superannuation as money in a bucket. So I'm going to split this bucket in two. Again, it's like having two halves of the bucket. The first half is called accumulation. And that's really the side of the bucket where our money's building up and we can't access it. So the first part of superannuation, as we know, our employer puts in a minimum of 9% into that bucket. So that can be employer contributions. We can also salary sacrifice, and we can also make what's called non-concessional contributions, which is after-tax money. So once our money goes into this side of the bucket, it gets invested. So here's the first, I suppose, myth to dispel. It doesn't matter what colour bucket you've got, it's how you invest your money that determines the returns of your superannuation. For example, if you had all your money in cash, the risk of losing money in there is very low. If you're very aggressive and had all your money in shares, international shares, or Australian shares, you're going to see volatility in your returns. So it's how you invest. We as members of a super fund have a choice of how we invest. So one of our, I guess, misconceptions is that we think the super fund that we're in is going to invest our money to get the best returns for us. All a super fund manager really is an administrator. So they take the money in from the employer, they pay the taxes out, they do a tax return for the super fund, they do an audit, and that's pretty much what they do. Typically, if we don't make investment choices, they'll invest our money in a default fund, and the majority of those are what we call balanced funds. So 50% in shares and 50% in what we call income assets such as cash, fixed interest, property managed funds. So really, it's time as Australians that we made a choice of how we invest our money inside super. So what happens once the money's in there and we actually hopefully do get some returns on our money is we start paying tax inside that super fund. So on earnings we pay 15% tax. So that's, let's for an example use a cash account or a term deposit where we're getting money from that investment, we're going to pay 15% tax. We also pay capital gains tax inside that fund. So the example there was we bought a share, it's gone up in value, we've decided to sell it, and we do pay capital gains tax on the profit, but only at 10% if we've held that asset for 12 months. So that's a real general overview of accumulation side of the pension account, of the superannuation account. So let's look at the other half of the bucket now. So we can have the same investments in this side of the bucket, and this is called a pension account. So this is when we can actually access our super. And this is where it gets really exciting for superannuation. We pay 0 tax on earnings. So we've got a term deposit, we're earning money, we actually don't pay any tax on that. So it's pretty good. We pay no capital gains tax. Now that gets really exciting when we're talking about property. The example here would be that I've bought a property, I've held it for 20 years and hopefully historic returns kick in and it doubles not once but twice over 20 years, and I decide I don't want that property in my super fund and I sell it off. I'm not going to pay any capital gains tax, which is fantastic. So one of the other parts of the legislation is we have to draw an income from a pension. Now, at age 60 plus, we don't pay any tax on that income. So the beauty there is if we take super for what it really is, up until we can access it, it's a concessionally taxed environment. We only pay 15% tax as opposed to marginal tax rates. And once we're at a pension age or an age where we're able to access the funds in super, we don't pay any tax on earnings and we don't pay any capital gains tax. And once we reach age 60, no tax on the income. So really what we're talking about there is a tax haven right here in Australia endorsed by the ATO. So that really explains super in a general overview. So the important points are concessionally taxed environment and the types of investments we have determine what sort of returns we're going to get inside that superannuation bucket. So just to cover off on the different types of buckets, the super fund is not obliged to make you the best returns that it can get. It's simply there to administer the fund. And the only difference between a self-managed super fund and a retail or industry super fund is really who is the trustee of that fund. So I hope that gives you a general overview of superannuation, and I hope you watch the next video which explains how a self-managed super fund can buy an investment property using the bank's money. Thank you.